And it's time for me to start turning this down. And I'm sort of going to break from tradition, and instead of using my scraper, which I use 99% of the time, I'm going to start out with the roughing gouge. And about this roughing gouge, I wondered, why don't they call it a roughing scoop? Because I was looking at the way it cuts the wood out, and it sort of scoops it out. Well, I guess gouge too, but scoop I think is more accurate. However, it's a roughing gouge. Now if you watch, it's sort of like a scraper, except it's got sides that cut the sides first, and then the bottom of the gouge, it sort of scrapes it out. Well, sort of. Now my plan here is to just take these corners down until I get to this flat surface here. Otherwise I'm going to be making it smaller than it already is. And it's slightly smaller already than what the guy wanted. So once I use the roughing gouge to get the corners down, I'm going to stop. Then I'll transfer to a scraper. And there's no use trying to use the dust collection. Chips are going to be on this side, so I'll just have to let the chips fall where they may. Well, I know I said I was going to use the roughing gouge until I got down to places like this, but I started using my scraper because for me it's so much smoother and does such a better job. And if I'm careful, I'm not going to have any large pieces tearing out. Now I'll readily admit that the roughing gouge will have less tear out on corners. But sorry folks, I'm just used to the scraper, and that's that. Anyway, just to take this down maybe another 1/16 of an inch, get to this part here, and that'll be as small as this end is going to go. A little bit more. Well, that's about it. Now I've done this small end the same way as the large end. And all I have to do now is attach this surface to the surface on the other end that is turned down like this in an exact straight line. And I think I'm going to be using my spindle duplicator for that. I know it's kind of slow, but at least I'll be doing it in a straight line. Now you can see here where he wants the end of the barrel to be a little larger in diameter, and he wants a couple of little grooves in it, and he wants it 3 inches in diameter after it's turned down. Well, it'd be probably about 3.5 with this. Anyway, I've gone ahead and done that, and this is what I've come up with. So all I've got to do now, this is 3 inches right here, I just have to go straight back. And like I mentioned, I'm going to use my spindle duplicator for this. Looks like a crack here, but this is filled with glue. So that's a strong crack. Now, as most of you know, the sharper your tool, the less chance of tear out. So I'm making it as sharp as I can. And this little cutter, by the way, it cuts as well as on the point. It cuts a little bit on each side. Maybe you'll notice that as I'm going along. Now you may remember I said that I was going to put a larger chuck on here. I've changed my mind on that. I'm going to leave this here. The reason being is this end of it has to be turned down so that there's just sort of a knob on the end here. And if I have a chuck like that on there, I can't turn this down to make a knob. So I guess the taper actually is not going to start from here. The taper towards the small end will probably start back here. So I got to remember that. If I started from here, that means that this will be slightly smaller than it needs to be. And as I mentioned, it's already slightly smaller than what he wanted. Now these sliders here and here do not slide smoothly in the ways. I believe this aluminum is the problem. I don't know if it's kind of like porous or what it is, but the plastic, after it stops, it sort of jerks along, unless I lubricate it with STP, and then it's a lot smoother. So I gotta clean out the old debris from the ways and put in fresh STP, and then it's pretty good. But you know, I believe if they had to use steel here instead of aluminum or whatever this is, it probably would have worked a lot better. Either that or had ball bearings. That would be even better yet. But then the thing would have been a lot more expensive than it already was. But it might have been worth it. Okay, the ways are greased. And I've actually got the spindle duplicator set at an angle so that instead of tapering down towards the front, it tapers away. And I'm just going to taper it and stop to about here, and then taper towards the end of the barrel. Well, clearly I got a ways to go. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera off now and get it out of my way, and I'll be able to do a better job. Okay, now it's angled the other way. And the distance between the cutter and this is the same right here as it is down here when I run this all the way down to the end. So all I have to do now is just slowly millimeter the cutter in, and then go back and forth, and hopefully this is going to work out. And I'll try and do it in time lapse. So here we go. Well, that's it. It's finally got to the smallest diameter here, and it's in a straight line. It begins to curve this way right here. From this point that way, it goes this way. Anyway, pretty rough. Tomorrow we sand.